are doing the verse number 14 of the 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And the 14th verse was like this. He's now describing Sanjaya is narrating to Dhritarashtra, who is very keen on figuring out what's going on in the warfield, the battlefield. Tataha sa vismaya vishto hrishta roma dhananjaya pranamya sirasa devam kritanjali rabhasata. So it's actually a very simple verse where he's saying that after seeing all this, so many faces, so many bodies, ekasam at one place, Bhagavan is revealing his Vishwarupa to a human being. And he's able to see that because he has the benefit of Dibya Chakshu, that Jnana Chakshu. God has temporarily given to him. He hasn't done any sadhana to get it on his own, which the Jnani, of course, has the realization of the self after a long journey of self-exploration. Sravana, Mana, first Nishkama Karma, then Atma Siddhi, and then Samarpana Buddhi, Upashana, then Dhyana, and finally Vicharana, which will include Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, and finally he will have Tattva Darshana, Manonasha, Jivana Mukti. Then he has completely Kaivala Prapti. That's a very, very long journey. Here, Arjuna has access to all of it because of God's grace. In a way, this particular thing justifies that verse, that sutra in Yoga Sutras, Ishvara Pranidhana Dva. So, this fellow hasn't actually done anything. He has just surrendered himself to the Lord, and the Lord, because of his grace, is revealing himself to him. This particular small verse, that he's completely wonderstruck, flabbergasted. He is completely overtaken by strange, delightful emotions as a result of his being face to face with God. He was earlier also face to face with God, but he didn't have access to that reality. So it's like you're standing in front of a treasury without the key. So the treasury may be with you, and that's what Vedanta tells us, that we are treasurers without the key to the treasury, which is the self. So he's completely surprised, wonderstruck, and then he's very excited in a certain sense. He's kind of overcome by great undefined emotions of happiness and epiphany, realization, Dhananjaya, Pranamya Shirasha Devam. He immediately falls at the feet of the Lord. He does a Dandavat Pranam, Dandavat, like a stick. You lie down like a stick, stretch your hands, fold your hands. Kritanjali Rabhasata, and then he's folding his hands in prayer. Now, this verse, already we have done the Sankara Bhashya, there is nothing great or fantastic in it, but Madhusudana Saraswati brings in a bit of technical details of Kabya Sastra, because he's a great scholar. And everything is fine except that towards the end he makes a very complex couple of sentences where he's bringing in the whole science. I mean, that is one of the pleasures of reading Madhusudana Saraswati. He brings in the whole, complex details, jargon, and technical terms of Kavya Sastra to explain that particular moment, because it's a great moment. Please understand this. This is the moment everybody is looking for in life. It's like a person is thinking of great success. And how do you get that great success? And what is the emotion which you are flooded with upon reaching that destination? This is the moment of destination. This is what he has been vying for. And suddenly Bhagavan is in front of him in his own rupa, with his dharma. He's showing his Vishwarupa, not the limited Sopadhi Rupa. This is also Sopadhika, but the maximum possible manifestation he's bringing into play before Arjuna. So it's like that, that aha moment of his life. And Madhusudana Saraswati beautifully tried to capture it, but it will be a little technical. So I'll try to simplify as much as possible. Ideally, we could just leave those couple of lines, but then for future reference, because we are recording it, it will be there so that anybody who's trying to make sense of it can always listen and make sense of it. So how does it go? Tataha tad darsana, darsanat anantaram. So he has Ishvara darsana. And all the last 4 or 5 verses in which Sanjaya narrated how Bhagavan revealed himself to Arjuna. Vismayena, he has this great surprise. Vismayena, Adbhuta Darsana Prabhavena. And then he comes under the spell, the Prabhava, the influence of this, you know, being face to face with this magical reality, which is not very normal. It's Adbhuta, because it's not a very simple thing. This is something which is very normal to the whole Bhuta Varga, whosoever is experiencing it. Something out of the blue, completely strange. Prahavena, Alokika Chitta Samatkara Visheshena. Then his mind is undergoing some kind of a psychological makeup or psychological experience which is not normal, which is completely different from what a normal mind will experience. It's like a lot of these 1960s people, the hippies and the so-called, they experiment with a lot of psychedelic drugs to have that expansion, the mental expansion. Now here, Arjuna has not taken any drugs. He's drugged with divinity. And that particular drug of divinity is sort of subjecting his cognitive mind to a set of completely different experiences, which he cannot normally make sense of, has no access to such experiences. Do we mean that a person actually goes mad when he meets God? No. These are completely paranormal, para-rational, psychological experiences. And the psychological experience is actually associated with the brain part of it, the physical part of it. The psychic or the spiritual aspect of it is even more subtle, much more profound. We are just now talking about the raw Maharshan and other things. These are all physical and basically biophysical. It's like the biochemical thing in the brain, okay? Psychophysical thing. Chitta Samatkara Visheshena Avishto Vyaptaha. So he's kind of Avishta Vyaptaha. Ata eva Krishta Roma Pulakitaha. And therefore, his hair kind of standing on his skin because he's very excited, super excited. San, Pulakitaha San, Sa, Prakhyata Mahadeva Sangramadi Prabhavo. He has a lot of experiences already. It's not that the first time he's suddenly face to face with something great or out of the normal kind of experience. He has fought with Lord Mahadeva, none other than that. So it's not that he's basically saying he's not a normal human being. Arjuna is somebody who is very offbeat, is completely different, and is capable of taking up a lot of psychological hardship and great challenges. He generally doesn't get flustered or get scared. He had one such emotional experience in the beginning of the whole Mahabharata, because of his purva punya, as a result of which his mind is kind of trapped by its own old sanskaras of what is papa, what is punya, and then certain fears whether I'll win this war or I'm going to lose this war. And therefore, he has a few religious thoughts which are kind of half baked because he's falsely identifying himself with his body, with his social class, his identity, his emotional and rational mind, which Vedanta slowly refutes and takes his consciousness to a higher level through the next few chapters. And now he's face to face with Bhagavan. So what he's experiencing is Pulakitaha Prakhyata Mahadeva Sangramadi Prabhavo Dhananjaya. That kind of a person he is. He is a person well established, very brave, but he is having this kind of psychological experience. What Madhusudana Saraswati is trying to hint at is that this is definitely an extremely profound, deep, cathartic experience. Cathartic is what transforms you. Catharsis is a total transformation. Dhananjaya, Yudhishthira Rajasuya Uttara Gograhecha Sarvatra Rajnyo Jitva. You know what happens is Rajasuya, all the cows and all were taken, and he went to Bhishma and he sort of brought back those cows. He defeated all the kings. Jitva Dhanam Ahritavana iti Prathita Mahaparakramo Ati Dhiraha. Generally, he doesn't get excited. It's like a very experienced batsman. He's going out to play cricket. He's going to the Maidan, to the cricket field, the pitch. He's not nervous or super excited. He just starts batting. He's very normal. But a first timer who has got a chance to play is the one who is either very excited or nervous, but he's having a lot of palpitations. He starts sweating. But Arjuna is different. But Arjuna is having his hair standing on his skin. What does it mean? There is something terribly different from what normally can happen to him is happening to him. That is that Ishvara Darshana and its Prabhava. That is what he is capturing by mentioning all this. Yudhishthira राजस्वीय उत्तर गोग्रहे च सर्वत्र राज्ञो जित्वा धनमाहृतवान् इति प्रथित महापराक्रमो अति धीरः. That kind of a person. Sakshat Agni iti va. And then he's also a Mahatejasvi. He's not scared of anyone. He just can pick up his bow and arrow and can take fight even with Lord Shiva. He's not a normal animal. The beast is different. He's saying he can be cool like a mountain. At the same time, he can be fierce like fire. And he's saying, Sakshat Agnihitiva Mahatejasvitvad. That kind of a person, Dhananjaya, Devam Tameva Vishwaroopadharam Narayanam Sirusa Bhumulagnena Pranamya Prakashenena Bhakti Sraddhati Sayena Natva Namaskritya Kritanjalihi Sampati Kritahasta Yugaha San Abhasata Uktavan. So he's now putting up the description of what has happened, that Arjuna is falling flat. A person who was not afraid of Lord Shiva, was defeated hundreds of kings, and who could actually not fall prey to temptations, or any gestures of love or affection by Urvashi. He is one of the brightest, best, most self-controlled guys on earth. Not for nothing, Lord Krishna picks him up as an agent for transmitting Bhagavad Gita to mankind. He could have picked up anyone else. Why Arjuna? Because he was the real adhikari, not Yudhishthira, who otherwise is a very moralistic person. But he wasn't moral enough to say no to, it's like his younger brother's wife. He should have said no, Mama, sorry. He didn't say this. So all these people apparently are very dharmika and all, but they don't have that kind of antakarana sutti. On the other hand, Arjuna, who has won the Sayambara, is ready to share. Mother is everything. So he's a great dharmika. He's in fact superior to Yudhishthira. So that kind of a person, just look at it, that he falls at the feet of the Vishwarupa Bhagavan, Vishwarupa Dhara, Narayana. At his feet he falls and he folds his hands and he says this, which will start from the next verse. Now he makes that philosophical commentary on what happened. And this is what is a little technical. Atra Bhishmayakhya Sthai Bhavasya Arjunagatasya आलंबन विभावेन भगवता विश्वरूपेण उद्दीपन विभावेन असकृद तद्दर्शनेन अनुभावेन सात्विक रोमहर्षेण नमस्कारेण अंजलिकरणेन च व्यभिचारेण च अनुभाव अक्षिप्तेन वा धृति मति हर्ष वितर्कादीन परितोषात् सवासानानां सूत्रीणां तादृशः चित्त चमत्कारो अपि तद भेद अनध्यवसायात् परितोषं गतः परमानंद आस्वाद रूपेण अद्भुतरसो भवति इति सूचितम्. Now you see, in this particular sentence he has used a lot of technical jargon from Kavya Sastra. Now we could actually just ignore it and go forward. From Vedantic standpoint there is nothing, but if we want to just have some rasa aswadana of his wisdom, his his scholarship. He's a great scholar, so we can spend a little time here. Atra, here, Vishmaya. Each word is actually, there's a bit of what is that Vishmaya? Vividha smayo harsha iti Vishmaya. Multiple kinds of harsha, that is Vishmaya. Because when you have not one surprise, but multiple surprises at one place. Just imagine the magician comes and then you think that he's holding a bird in his hands and he suddenly turns into the stick. So you think, okay, so the bird has become a stick. What does it change? The physical form and the appearance. And suddenly that stick starts singing. So he's adding the music element to it. And then suddenly fire emerges out of it. So, he's doing multiple things at the same time. So you don't know what to see, what to miss. On that particular stage where the magician is showing you magic, three, four, five, seven things happen at the same time. Like if you go to the gala ceremonies, for example, the opening ceremonies of like Olympics or Commonwealth Games or something, you will find so many things start happening in the beginning. They want to create that scene, they want to create that experience. So you don't know what to see and what to miss out. Maybe something is missing out, and somebody says, "Ah, look at that corner. There is this, there is something else, and look at the other corner." So there are multiple surprises, multiple sources of surprise, and it creates a bit of harsha, a strange kind of happiness or excitement. That is Vishamaya, Vismacha. Then there is another word called Sthai Bhava. What is Sthai Bhava is like this. You know, three, four examples one can give, but just imagine when that magic is continuing and there are a lot of things happening, you think they are temporary. You have your cognitive faculty and you have certain experience of reality. That is what continues. But at that particular moment, that magic show appears as if it's going to go on for eternity. And here the Kavya Sastra says, for example, the like during Rati Bhava, some like for example, there's a couple and they're in love, or they're mostly in teenagers. You'll see that. So what happens is that they are suddenly caught up in a certain emotion of attraction towards each other, and they think that it's permanent, and they think it's not going to end. They are kind of in meditation. It's not meditation, it's just a psychological thing. So that is kind of sthai bhava in the mind, and it is used in literature and poetry, right? Sthai bhavasya. Now the Arjuna is experiencing this sthai bhava. He is not seeing Vishwarpa for a second. So what Madhusudan is trying to say is, certain times you have a delusion that you have seen a ghost, or you see a strange bird in the sky. It can happen because of some psychological issues, some biochemical problems. Hallucinations do happen during great depressions or anxieties, certain false things. You are sleeping on your bed, you will hear some sound. Actually, there is nothing there, but you heard it. How that happens? There is some circuit interconnection happens in the brain because of either depression or anxiety or whatever, and suddenly you hear a voice and you think, or maybe you think too much about your brother or sister or daughter or somebody you love, and then you hear that person's voice and you think, oh, my daughter, is she in problem because she is in a hostel and you are somewhere else, or your father, he's in a hospital. So suddenly you wake up, you say, my dad was asking for milk. No, but you are at home, your dad is in the hospital, there are other people looking after him. But suddenly you're saying, my dad was looking for some milk, can I serve it to him? This sort of things can happen. But here in Vishwarupa Darshana, Arjuna is not having a temporary or a flash-like appearance of Vishwarupa. Bhagavan is saying what Madhusudana is saying, and Bhagavad Gita is saying very naturally. He actually experiences it. It's not that he's sort of in a state of delusion which is going to last for a couple of seconds. It's not like that. So sthai bhavasya arjuna gatasya, and this particular sthai bhava, this psychological experience, which is now happened. So this particular thing is now established where this sthai bhava in Arjuna, Arjunasya, Arjuna gatasya alambana vibhavena. And what is vibhava? There is another thing. Prabhava, influence. What is vibhava? Is a result of something you experience on something. Okay, so you are sitting nicely studying and you have a favorite dish. Let's take the East because that all of us can relate to. So let's imagine some lovely sweet dish of yours like rasmalai or ice cream, anything you love most. So you are actually in a mood to study very hard. And suddenly you have the hawker boy announcing that he's passing through your street. That's a very Indian experience. And he sort of shouts that this particular sweet dish is available with me. Then immediately you close your books and you go there. Then when you see the rasmalai, your mouth starts watering, isn't it? You want to purchase quickly, you want to have experience of it. Similarly, here what happens is that vibhava is a result of something. There is certain artha grahana. There is a particular object or certain experience happens to you. That is what is mentioning. That is vibhava. And what is anubhava? Because of vibhava, you are having some psychological experience, and that is anubhava. To give an example, just imagine that there is a sports person, Okay, like say the javelin thrower, or there is a wrestler, and there is Olympics is there, and he knows the other guy is a champion. He's far more powerful. Now the coach tells him something, and he says that I have told you these tricks, and I have done his, the physical, biophysical analysis, biodynamics of his body. He's not good at these movements, and I've taught you these movements, and you're going to apply, and he's going to fall flat. And you have it in you to actually pull him down and dominate over him in the third, fourth minute, if not in the first minute. So you have to be patient. So you are going. He knows that he has been bitten twice. But because of the coach's word of motivation, some confidence, the coach touches him. And this fellow is overwhelmed by this touch of the coach at the last moment. He was already having a snobbish attitude, very superior complex. But this now, he just touches that player, hugs him, and says, "Today you're going to get it from me." And this guy is suddenly overcome with that powerful emotion. And he thinks that moment his mind is pretty stable. He starts believing that he's superior, he can achieve it, and then he enters there. So the mind sort of goes through layers and layers of psychological experiences. And these technical terms are kind of referring to these different levels of psychological modifications or mental modification, which enables us. Why is he mentioning all this? Because he is trying to lead us to some understanding of what it means to have Vibhu Darshana, what it means to have Ishwar Sakshatkara. That is what is the goal of Madhusudana Saraswati. Therefore, he is using this technical jargon in order to also impress a lot of highly skilled, literary experts who are reading his commentary. He was writing meant for the great scholars at Benares. So he's writing this in order to capture this, saying that you look at literature, these sort of descriptions have been made. So I'm not saying something out of the blue. That is what Arjuna exactly experienced. So he's saying what? Alambana vibhavena. And vibhava is again of, what is vibhava? He's saying Arthanvi bhavayanti iti vibhavaha. Okay. So there is something called artha. That is the object. So what is artha? So I'm saying pen. Now the word is pen. That is vachaka. This is vachya. This is the artha. Okay. This is the object. I'm trying to, when I say pen, what is the artha? This is the artha. This is the artha of this vachaka, this savda. This is the savda and this is the artha, right? So savda and artha, there's a relationship. Vachya, vachaka, samandha. That is how they explain it. Now, he's saying because of this vibhava, so anything, any material, as a result of which you are having an understanding of that artha. Why is he bringing it here? Why in everyday life we don't use all these words? Because Arjuna is not seeing a simple physical object. He's not seeing a pen or a pencil. He is doing Vishwarupa Darshana. And that is not possible as a mode of sensory perception. We cannot experience the Lord through our these five indriyas, jnanendriyas. Therefore, Bhagavan says, you cannot see that with your chakshusha. That means all the five indriyas you have, through that you cannot apprehend what is my nature, who am I, what is my Vishwarupa. And therefore, I'm giving you Divya Shakyu, a special mode of perception, which is beyond normal perceptual process. And that faculty which God has given him temporarily is much superior to the sharpest of eyesight or your ability to hear or touch or smell or whatever sensitivity you have in your indriyas, your senses. This particular faculty is far superior. That's what he has mentioned. So that is a result of that, is that particular thing, that vibhava, that is seeing that Vishwarupa. So this arthanvai, so that is that vibhava is happening, and it has alambana vibhava and uddipana vibhava. What is alambana vibhava? This guy, because he's seeing Vishwarupa, he is experiencing that process of knowing. That is Alambana Vibhava, dependent on the side of Vishwarupa. He is undergoing that mental modification. And what is Uddipana? Uddipana is something which is created in you. There is a psychological experience. What is that? He is very super excited. He's having emotional, you're overwhelmed. You're watching a song on television. The mother has lost her son. If you look at Mother India, so she's crying. Her husband is dead. She has two children. And she's trying to do cultivation using that whole plow on her head. She's behaving like a bull, that nervous stuff. So when you see that song in Mother India, you will cry because it's a very emotional scene. She's kind of representing Mother India in a way. So that makes you very, very emotional, right? So that is the Alambana. What is that Alambana Vibhava, that film? What is that Uddipana, that particular song which is playing and through which that particular emotion, which is producing a new set of emotions in you, that is the Uddipana Vibhava. Okay, so then what he's saying, Alambana Vibhavena Bhagavata Vishwarupena. So because he's that Alambana Vibhava is what? Vishwarupa. And then what happens in him? Uddipana Vibhava happens. That psychological modification. Uddipana Vibhavena Asakrit Darshanena. Sakrit means, just for one time, suddenly for a second. But asakrit means it's continuous again and again. That means there is no interruption. It's not incomplete. This is a very solid Nishchita Anubhava. Is directly seeing Bhagwan right in front of them. Okay? Darsanena Anubhavena. There is another word called Anubhava. So first you have Darshana, then you have Alamana Vibhava, and then you have Uddipana Vibhava. He has that emotional, overwhelming experience in it. And he continues to see Bhagavan. So there is a Sthai Bhava. It's like a teenager to a couple of boys and girls, they experience that as if it's the beginning and end of the universe. They are in love. Okay? They are watching a dance or something. They forget everyone. They are just thinking this is all that is there on earth. It's a very temporary thing though. But they have that style over there. Similarly, he forgets this war field. Arjuna forgets his brothers, wars, Kauravas, everything. He is overwhelmed with Vishwarupa Darshana. That is the Stayahava is experiencing. A moment of permanence, right? Which you experience during sometimes when you are in great pain. Sometimes you feel that when you are very happy, especially in love, and you feel a great sense, or in bhakti sometimes, you feel that great sense of permanence there, even though it may not be there for a long time. Okay? Anubhavena. What is Anubhava? And this is again another one. That is a result of Vibhava, the psychological experience you undergo is called Anubhava. That is how Anubhava is explained. Vibhava, Vibhavita Artha. Okay, Anubhutihi Anubhavaha. Vibhavita Artha Anubhutihi. So that for example is a result of Vishwarupa Darshana. He had some Roma Harshana, and then he is experiencing it, and that is Anubhava. Uddipana Vibhava. First you have Alambana Vibhava, which is Vishwarupa. He sees it. Then there is Uddipana Vibhava. There is a psychological transformation in him. Then he is experiencing that particular thing. And that second experience, and this is the difficulty of Sanskrit literature, is so subtle and sukshma. There's so many technical jargon that people get put off, and they say that these are all Brahmanical complexity, the typical Indian way of making things very complex. But there is something profound which is sought to be conveyed here, and therefore the difficulty. So he's saying that Anubhavena, then he experiences that, okay? That psychological overwhelming experience he experiences that Anubhavena, Satvikaro Maharshena. So you may have this doubt, because I'm also giving the example of a teenager boy and a girl getting super excited watching a dance show and sitting next to each other, listening to a romantic number. So is he also having similar Romaharshana? No, it's not like that. Because he mentioned earlier, Atidhiraha, he's Arjuna. He was not even bothered when Urvashi was kind of approaching him for a moment of attention. He didn't care. So she purged him. You're not even paying attention to me. Not fair of you. This is disrespect. She cursed him. But that's another story. Here what happens? He's a Mahasattvika. Where is he standing? Before the Lord. Did he ask for Rajya Prapti? He said, no, show me Vishwarupa. He's a great student. There is no digression. There is no, his mind is not running around. He's very focused in his attention. He wants to get it here and now. He's saying how long it will take. What happens if I die in the middle? Bhagavan says, no, you'll be reborn as Yoga Brashta. He's not happy. Then he asking, how can I meditate on you? You're so difficult. Then Bhagavan tells in 9th chapter, then 10th chapter, he mentions about this vibhutis, do it like this. So he's a very, very alert, keen, honest, careful student, and also having all the talent to grasp what Bhagavan is saying. So Arjuna now having what kind of Romaharshana? Madhusudana beautifully writes, Sattvika Romaharshana. Now it's a contradictory in terms, right? Because Romaharshana is an emotional turbulence, is some kind of intense psychological experience. So how can you say only in tamas or rajas, you're very angry in rajasic state, so you might have romaharshana. In tamasic state, there's a lot of kama vasana, you overcome, maybe you have romaharshana. What do you mean by sattvika romaharshana? Yes, there is something called sattvika romaharshana. When does that happen? When, just imagine, you're sitting in deep meditation. It happens if you continuously do meditation. When your system gets cleansed and you're meditating, suddenly you'll find your hairs actually stand up. I'm saying this is just practical. This is not from any book, it happens. So your hair will actually stand up and you will be overwhelmed with some kind of energy. In the centers, it moves. And you will actually be overcome by some kind of a strange thrill in the body. It happens. That is Sattvika Romaharshana. If somebody practices Kundalini Yoga with the help of an Acharya, he can actually experience it. There's nothing emotional about it. There's no physical change, nothing. You're just sitting, quietly sitting, and there is a connectivity happens, and as if electricity passes through a body, that experience happens. And if anybody practices, he can actually have that experience. So that is what I'm saying. Sattvika Romaharshena, Namaskarena, and then he sort of falls at his feet. He realizes all my so-called my bravery, my ability to defeat others and all, these are delusional. The real reality that I was looking for is right in front of me. So he sort of understands the meanness of his own intellectual perception of who he is. And therefore he surrenders to the Lord. Namaskarena Anjali Karanena. He sort of folds his hands. Then he's saying, Cha Vyavicharina. There is another technical word. What is Vyavichara? Vyavichara is what? Again, this is a Kabya Shastra thing. Vyavichara, I'm not going into the details because that is, again, it will take us somewhere else. But briefly, I'm just telling you, there is a particular state of mind it goes on. And then during these love experiences or romantic experiences, the Shastra says that there is bouts of emotional excitement that comes in bouts. Okay, so there is a sahachara. This is a vyavichara. You have similar things and you're going on, but these things again and again sort of happens to you. Okay, now what he's saying is this particular romaharshana which is happening, he's sort of being overcome by that overwhelming experience of being face to face with the Lord in bouts. It's happening to him again and again. Vyavicharena, so anubhava akshiptena, and that anubhava, that udbelana, which is happening within him, he's having this experience of uddipana vibhava. Okay, that romancha, that particular thing he's experiencing, akiptena ba dhriti mati harsha vitarka adina. And he's now referring to 3-4 states of the mind. Dhriti, is having this kind, the dhriti is kind of patience, right? And mati and harsha is happy. And then vitarka, we have studied that vitarka, vichara, savichara, nirvichara, vitarka, then he's seeing all that. Paritosha, okay? Then you have this experience. Then he's experiencing what? Paritosa, savasananam satrinam tradasya chitta samatkaropi. And then what happens, he's saying is that this desire to hear from the Lord, more about it. He saw it, and then he wants to have that extra eagerness. Okay, and then because I mean, he sort of is also kind of very overwhelmed. How lucky I am, isn't it? That's quite of a overwhelming experience. And then he tells it to himself. He starts in a very subconscious mind. He listens to himself, and then he's experiencing that great tadrisa chitta chamatkara. Chitta chamatkara is another technical word he's introducing here. So chitta chamatkara, chitta vistara rupa vismaya paraparyaya, aparaparyaya. So Vismaya Paraparaparyaya. So what he's saying is that there is a sudden expansion of the mind. There's a certain vastness which is experienced in the mind. That is how he's saying Chitta Samatkara. He's saying that is experienced especially in Veera Rasha, like you are going to a war and you might die, okay? You're not bothered. But you're overwhelmed with the experience of a strange kind of power in you, and you're going to take up your enemy. You're not bothered about anything. You don't bother about that you're going to die. These things even don't come to your mind. My brother, sister, wife, children, nothing comes. You are in the war field. So in Veera Rasa that comes, and Adbhuta Rasa. And there is something terribly strange that you are experiencing, which here Arjuna is not experiencing Veera Rasa but Adbhuta Rasa, because he is face to face with Lord of the universe in his Vishwarupa. So tad veda anavadhyayasat paritosham gatah. And then, so there is the differences. He's not being able to differentiate anything. He's not being able to describe anything that this is what I experience, this is what it is, this is no. He's beyond all that. He's under a strange spell. Gatah paramananda aswada rupena. Now he is kind of, as a result of all the psychological modifications, this sort of this whole moment of epiphany, that super excitement in the most spiritual sense, not in biochemical sense. He's experiencing that moment, that aha moment, that great moment of having been arrived in something you have dreamed of, you have cried for, you have yearned for years and years, and suddenly it's happening. So you're in tears, you're very happy, you're very calm, you're very excited. All these emotions are happening to you at the same time. So Rupena Adbhuta Raso Bhavati iti Suchitam. So what Madhusudana Saraswati so far has done so far with all this is that with a series of emotional modifications and strange cognitive experiences, Arjuna, standing in front of Lord of the Universe, is having those rapid changes in his subjective self, in his subjectivity. And then he is arriving at a new vista, new horizon, where he cannot narrate to himself his experience. He is overcome by happiness, by a moment of contentment, super excitement, an element of strange element of certainty, even though everything is uncertain. Remember this. At that moment, he is experiencing greatest amount of certainty. And it's all strange. He has no doubts. He was having some doubt earlier. Now nothing. He is directly seeing Bhagwan in front of him. Whatever appeared to be in contradiction. How can a person having a limited body can be Ananta, can be Anadi? I was there. I gave it to this person, Manu and others, Prajapati. Now I'm giving it to you. You don't remember. I don't. He used to explain how that happened. Now Bhagavan is not giving any explanation. He's quiet, smiling, and he's seeing this Vishwarupa. He's damn scared at the same time, very happy, overcome by emotions, in tears, in smiles, in happiness. He falls at his feet because that moment of arrival of the truth is nameless. It cannot be captured in words. It's beyond all words. A bunch of greatest poets in our history can't put together. They cannot. put together in words. That is how Madhusudana Saraswati gave all this Kavya things, saying even the best poet cannot narrate this sort of experience of Ishvara Darshana. That's why I also went a little into it, because this itself is very elevating. When you meditate on what Arjuna must have felt, you feel very jealous of him, isn't it? Because just look how lucky he is. He had Ishvara Darshana. Then Arjuna goes to, now he opens his mouth, having fallen at the feet of the Lord. He opens his mouth and says, Arjuna Uvacha, Pasyami Devangs Tava Deva Dehe Sarvangs Tatha Bhuta Visesa Sanghan Brahmanamisam Kamalasanastham Risings Sarvan Uragangsya Divyan. This is the first verse of Arjuna. Now Arjuna is telling, "Oh Lord, I am seeing Bhagavan." Sanjay has so far said. Bhagavan first says, "Okay, you see all this in me." Then Sanjay says to Dhritarashtra what Bhagavan is showing him. Now Arjuna is narrating what. So we are hearing from the horse's mouth now. Pasyami, I am seeing Devan, all the devatas. He had asked this question, "What is Adhideva?" And Bhagavan had explained. All these devatas are Mama Antarbhakta. Now he sees it directly. All the devatas in Lord's body, the Vishwarupa. Tava Deva Dehe, O Deva Tava Dehe, in this Vishwarupa is Sarvan, every devata, all the devas, Tatha Bhuta Vishesa Sanghan. And then he also sees all these Bhuta Sanghan. Bhuta Sanghan, Samuhan. What kind of Bhuta? Jada, Sthavara, Jangama, everything he sees there. Animals, birds, plants, trees, everything. Brahmanam Isham. And then he also sees Chaturbuja Brahma, Isham, who is basically the Lord of creation. Kamalasanastham is sitting on that lotus, because he sits that Kamala which comes out of the navel point of Lord of the universe. Brahma is supposed to be sitting there. Kamalasanastham Rishimsha, and all the rishis. He also sees all the monks. And Bhagavan has said that, look, even devatas and rishis cannot know who am I. But I am showing it to you. I'll tell it to you who am I. So these devatas and rishis are actually appearing as tiny parts of Lord of the universe. Sarvan and all the rishis, not one or two. Vasishtha, Bhrigu, he had said I am Bhrigu, but everyone is there. He had said among the rishis I am Bhrigu, but he says whole bunch, infinite number of rishis in there. And Uragangsha Divyan. Uraga. Uru is, the one who moves on its belly. That is the snake. Uraga. So this Uragangsha Divyan and all sorts of snakes he's also seeing. It's a very strange thing, isn't it? So in Lord, he's seeing thousands and millions of kinds of snakes there. So let's look at how, because we will not repeat both Madhusudan and here, because these three verses, there is nothing terribly philosophical. So we'll maybe just stick to Shankara Bhashya. If there is anything new, I'll take up the Madhusudana. Katham Jatvaya Darsitam Vishwarupam Tad Aham Pasyami Iti Swa Anubhavam Aviskurvan Arjuna Uvacha. So whatever Bhagavan had showed him, now he is doing his own discovery of that, because he is actually seeing it. Pasyamiti Pasyami Upalave He Deva. So I'm getting it. What you had promised, you have delivered, and I'm seeing it. Tava Dehe He Deva. I'm seeing you in your body, in this Vishwarupa. What am I seeing? Devan Sharvan Tatha Bhuta Vishesa Sangan. I'm seeing all the gods, all the spiritual beings, all the gods and demigods, angels, and also Bhuta Vishesa Sangan. What are that? Bhuta Visheshananam, Sthavara Jangamanam. So all the Bhuta Vishesha, whatever is Bhuta Vishesha, I'm seeing in you, Sthavara, Jangama, everything. Animals, birds, and trees and everything. Nana Sanstana Visheshanam. So there are different modes of existence, and I see all that in you, in your body. Sangha, Bhuta Vishesa Sangha. Sangha is Samuha. So the Bhuta Vishesa Samuha. So I see all a kind of conglomeration of different material beings, living and non-living, right in this body in front of me. Kincha Brahmanam, and I also see Lord Brahma. Chaturmukham Isham Ishitaram is the Ishitara. Ishitara is a Niyanta, he controls everything. Prajanam Kamalasanastam. So Prajanam Ishitaram, he controls the people, that kind of thing. Hiranyagarbha, whatever you call, Ishitaram, Kamalasanastam. Prithvi Padma Madhye Meru Karnika Sanastam iti Arthaha. So there is this place of Meru Parvata. It's not a physical mountain. We don't know where it is, but there is some description of it. So it's essentially a celestial reality. This is not something we see with our naked eyes. The Meru Parvata is also described in Chandogya Upanishad and certain other places in Puranas, and you can find it about it. It's, it's, some people confuse this as the polar mountains, but it's different. Meru Karnikastam ityarthaha. Rishishcha Vasishthadim. So all the rishis also I'm seeing. Sarvan Uraganksha. So all the snakes I'm seeing. What kind of snakes? Basuki Pravritin Divyan Dyu iti Bhavan. Now you remember, he in the chapter 10, when he mentioned that I am Vasuki, and then he had also mentioned that I am that the Naga, and that particular Vasuki and Ananta, both he has mentioned. Sesa Naga. So among Nagas, he was Sesa, and Vasuki among the, all these Sarpas. So there was some distinction, which one is poisonous and which one is not. So here, he is basically mentioning Uraga. So there is no further classification of what is Sarpa and what is Naga. All the snakes, both, Basuki Adin. So everyone is included here. What else he sees? So this is what he pravritin Divyan, Divi Bhavan. So all these are all Alokika. These are not physical beings as we see normally in everyday life, but these are superior celestial beings. Next verse. Aneka bahudara netram pashyami twang sarvatunantarupam nantam na madhyam na punastavadim pashyami vishveswara. Then what he's saying here, Aneka bahu, because he had mentioned that I have Aneka. If you look at it, he showed him what this is the Sanjay had mentioned. Aneka Bhaktram Nayana Manika. We are multiple eyes and heads. Obviously, he'll have multiple hands. So Arjuna is seeing not the heads, but the hands, is narrating. Because, he's not disrespectful. He's not able to then look at those heads because they're so furious, so energetic, so luminous, not very easy to look at them. And therefore, he's saying Aneka Vahu, multiple hands and arms. Aneka Bhaktram Netram, and what he had mentioned, he's now mentioning after that. So he's looking from below up. That is the respectful way to look at seniors. So Aneka Bahu Udara. It's not like one stomach, he has millions of stomachs. Bhaktra Netram, and millions of heads, faces, and millions of eyes. Pasyami, I see all that. Tvam, you, who has all these. Sarvataha Ananta Rupam. And this Rupa is infinite. I don't see any end to it. It's kind of innumerable. Very difficult to describe. And there, so you know why Madhusudana Saraswati in the introduction mentioned why Arjuna is so super excited. Remember what is going to come. So he anticipated and he mentioned that he has that Adbhuta Rasha, experience of Adbhuta Rasha, and then he is doing that Aswadana, and he is experiencing that Paramananda right in front of Lord of the Universe. And he's not afraid of, scared of anything. He's only scared of what it means. He'll ask that question later on. Then Kiritinam, that different kinds of crowns he's wearing. Kiritinam, Gadinam, next. Nantamana Madhyamna Punastavadim. Bhagavan has already mentioned that I'm Anadi, I am the Adi, I am the Anta, I am the Madhya of this Bhutavarga and the Jadavarga. He has mentioned in chapter 10 and even earlier. So he's saying, Na Antam. Bhagavan says, I am the beginning, I am the end, I am the Madhya, I am in the middle. So Srishti, Laya, and Sthiti Avastha, it's me. I am the cause of all this. He's saying, but I don't see, you don't have an Adi, you don't have an Anta. Why? He is Adi of everything. He doesn't have an Adi. Anything which has an Adi cannot be Adi of everything because there'll be something happening before that. So he has no Adi. Because he's Anadi, he is Adi of everything. It's very clear, it's logical, isn't it? And he also saying, Na Antam, I don't see any end of it. Why? If Bhagavan is an Anta, he cannot be Laya of everything because some things might happen after he comes to an end. So also Arjuna is not seeing his Anta. It's very logical. Everything he mentioned in chapter 7, 8, 9, and 10, and the chapter 11 is all logically linked. There's not a single contradiction. So he's saying, Na Antam, Na Madhyam. I also don't see any middle. Bhagavan says, I'm the cause of the middle. I'm there everywhere because he's ever present. He has no beginning, no end. And he is not a material thing to be captured on the scale of time. He has only one time, which is Akhanda Kala, Nitya Kala. That is what he mentions. And therefore, now I also don't know what is the middle. What is your Sthiti Avastha? I am flabbergasted. I can't even make sense of it. Then he says, Na punastavadim pasyami visveswara vishwarupam. You are the Lord of the universe. Now I'm quite clear, O Vishweswara, I'm seeing your Vishwarupa. So Arjuna is now coming to very quietly but very wisely recognizing the secrets Bhagavan has mentioned, and he is slowly recognizing that whatever is perceived through the senses is essentially magical. And the real magician is standing in front of me with all his powers. He's telling me these are my secrets and how limited I am. I'm lucky me, I can see all that. But how limited I am. I can't even grasp all of it. It's so difficult. And then he's overwhelmed, continuously happening that, right? Again and again, he's overwhelmed, it's overcome by these emotions. Then the next verse, Kiritinam gadinam chakrinam cha tejorasim sarvatodiptimantam pashyami tvam durnirikyam samanta diptanalarka dvitima prameyam. Kiritinam. So he's wearing these crowns, not one, bejeweled, beautiful crowns. Every head will have a crown, and he has millions of heads. And Gadinam says he has this. He said that multiple ayudhas are udyata, he's just ready to fire his arrows and bows and several kinds of weapons he has. He's mentioning a few of his weapons here, what Sanjay has hinted earlier. Gadas he has, right? And then chakras. Chakra is that particular wheel where he holds, he doesn't have to physically go, he sort of releases it and it can kill anyone. Cha tejo rashim. And then he is seeing the luminosity of the road, and he cannot even describe it. The Teja Rashi, you know, it's an immeasurable amount of light he's witnessing in front of him. Sarvato Diptimantam. And that light is flashing all across and brighter and most luminous than anything that can describe it, because we have already dealt with what is the Nirupama, Saundarya of the Vishwarupa, Dhara Bhagavan. Bhagavan is there, Vishwarupa is showing now. So if you imagine 1,000 suns appearing in the sky, the bha or the luminosity they will have, that luminosity cannot be even compared with the luminosity of what Bhagavan showed to Arjuna. That's what Sanjay has mentioned. And that Arjuna is himself saying, Tejorasim sarvoto diptimantam pasyami tvam. Just imagine so much of light. So you are do nirikhyam. It's very difficult to see you. I can't see you actually. I'm kind of blinded by the light you have. But I'm being able to see. Why? There's no contradiction because he has got the Dibba Chakshu. So he's saying it's impossible to experience right in front of you that flash of a million suns appearing right in front of you. But I am being able to see that, oh Lord. Durniriksham, Samantat. It's all comprehensive at the same place. Samantat, Diptiman, Dipta Analarka Dvitim Aprameyam. And then just he's comparing the Dviti, the glaze, the shining nature of the Bhagavan, who is right in front of him. So he's saying that the fire and the sun, if you bring together all this, the luminosity of all that, put them together, and then it's even vastly greater than what I can imagine of. As Sanjay had mentioned, thousand suns, and saying, you are Aprameya, O Lord. He's saying, I'm seeing you, but I'm slowly realizing that it's not easy to know who you are. You are not, Prameya is what? Pramana is the process of knowing, Prama is the jnana, and Pramata is the knower, and Prameya is the knowable object, the object of knowledge. But he's confessing the Bhagavan. I agree, sir, and I fully recognize, I can see it right away that you are aprameya. You are not an object of my knowledge. I know because of your grace, I'm going through this splendid, infinite, shining experience with, and this particular thing, this presence of yours, which is resplendent with million suns glow, is hard to bear with. But then, because of your grace and kindness, I'm witnessing it. But I fully understand that I cannot know its nature. I might see it because of your grace, but I don't understand its dharma. And then, because he has many questions to ask, but we'll stop here and we'll do the little commentary which is there on these in Sankara Bhashya. Tomorrow we have sort of just come to the close of the time, exceeded by a couple of minutes. So I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask.